Good evening, family. Welcome. This is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope everybody's doing well. Check in, let us know where you're hailing from. So, today I am podcasting from a different location. Please continue to check in. I am in Tennessee visiting my grandchildren and my son and daughter in law, having a great time with the babies. And I thought I'd go live because I haven't spoken to you all in about 2 days. So keep checking in, family. Welcome. We're going to talk about how President Trump continues to broker world peace and secure trade deals that will rake in trillions of dollars to make America wealthy again. And it's interesting because while he was at the NATO summit, the NATO secretary called President Trump daddy. Now he's trying to defend his statement, but he did call Trump daddy because he said anybody that can broker deals like President Trump is a good friend. But before he called him daddy, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, which is why I entitled this broadcast, Daddy's Home. Some people will call him Zaddy, as Zaddy is a very wealth papa or daddy or big papa, man that's wealthy that provides for his family. So they're calling him Zaddy, Daddy, Big Papa, all types of names. And we'll talk about why as you continue to check in. So hello, Sister Crystal. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Zim Zim. Welcome. Happy Sabbath day. Zim Zim are you a member, Zim Zim? If you are or not, we're very grateful for you, and we thank you so much for your kind regards. We thank Irma for her kind regards, and Zim Zim, muchas gracias for the super sticker. You were here waiting on me before I even came on live. Thank you. Maxine's in the house. Wildfire is a member of the Silver Soul Tribe, which, by the way, we're going to have a meeting this evening where we're going to have some breaking Iraq news. We won't be on long today. It's storming outside. I don't have much to do here in Tennessee since the grandchildren just spent a couple hours with their family and it's storming. I thought I'd go live. But later on today, about 5 o'clock, we're going to do a breaking Iraqi news podcast for you all so you can see what's going on in Iraq. And you can see that for certain things are moving, family. It doesn't matter what the natural eye sees, spiritually speaking, things are moving. Okay, please know that. Keep checking in, and I'm going to prove it to you. We had a wonderful NATO meeting just recently. President Trump caused a ceasefire between Iraq and Israel, and it's just a beautiful time to be alive, as Chief Mack would say. So if you have time later on, you want to catch us at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can join the Silver Soul Tribe and we'll just discuss a few things that's going on in Iraq. I think you'll like it as it relates to the global currency reset and the revaluation of currencies. I know a lot of people are actually focused on Iraq, but what I like to do is focus on what President Trump is doing here in America, and then look at what he's doing with China. Because America and China have the two largest economies. And as I told the Silver Soul Tribe weeks ago, the mainstream media was not reporting on the trade deal that Trump made with China. And when you have the two largest economies making trade agreements, that means everybody else will have to fall in line. All other countries will fall in line when you have the two largest economies making any type of deals. So a trade deal between China and America on the heels of President Trump actually putting all types of tariffs on China is monumental Because remember, under his first administration, he kept talking about China, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and how they had overtaken America. And he talked about how China was doing nefarious business with America by importing all their stuff into America with no taxes on their imported goods. But when we would import goods into China, they would put a whole lot of taxes or tariffs on our goods into China. So what was happening was the deep state, the United States Incorporated, had made deals with the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and allowed China to overtake our economy and infiltrate us in every segment of our society. So Trump was vehemently against the CCP. He had a lot of trade wars with China under his first administration. And that led to the companies that were in America, which had fled to China, to then leave China and go to Vietnam. And then the Vietnamese GDP exploded, unbeknownst to most people. So Vietnam is in a very good place. It was one of the only places that was open during the global pandemic. Their GDP was great. The borders were open to some extent. They had a lot of allies between Vietnam and other East Asian nations. They were doing trade agreements with other nations. People didn't know about that. Vietnam was thriving because when Trump had trade wars and tariff wars between America and China, the companies, American companies even that were in China, left China and went to Vietnam because they didn't want the tariffs that Trump was threatening there with China. But why were they even in China anyway? A lot of American companies had gone abroad to China before Trump even became president the first time because America was being ridiculous. America was mistreating our own merchants and businesses here with a lot of red tape, a lot of taxes. And so they fled and went to China. They was like, look, America's got a better relationship with China than they do with their own people. So they went to China and they made deals with China. They took advantage of the cheap labor there. And so President Trump said, oh, now I'm going to put some tariffs on China. And if you're abroad and you're an American company, you're going to get this smoke too. That's why they call him daddy. You're going to get this smoke. So the American companies, other companies in China fled, went to Vietnam. Vietnam started thriving. They was taking advantage of the cheap labor there. And Vietnam was making business deals and open during the pandemic. And afterwards, when everybody else was struggling, Vietnam was thriving. Don't sleep on Vietnam, to all my investors out there. So when President Trump came back the second time, he said, I'm going to finish what I started in the beginning, and I'm going to continue to put these tariffs on China and any other nation that is doing trade with America. Because again, we would do trade with other countries and we will have very little taxes or tariffs on their goods imported into America, but they will have a whole lot of taxes and tariffs on the American goods going into their country. And President Trump came back and said, no, on my watch, we're going to have a level playing field. And he said, I'm going to pick up again where I left off in the first time. And under his first administration, Trump said, regarding currency devaluations, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm going to implement something that's going to put everybody on a level playing field to deal with currency devaluations. That's what he said under his first administration. What did he do during his second administration to put everybody on a level playing field regarding those devaluations? He put tariffs on those countries. He got rid of the Internal Revenue Services here in America, and he created the External Revenue Service. Got rid of the IRS, created the ERS to put taxes and tariffs on other nations, because those rogue people that overtook America and our republic taxed the people instead of other countries that were doing business with us. How nefarious is that? Before you even had an IRS, the way the governments would make money was doing business with each other through trade. But again, Trump said regarding currency devaluations, follow me, especially if you are in the investments of currencies, foreign currencies. Regarding currency devaluations, he said, I've been worried about that for a long time. I'm going to implement something to put everybody on the level playing field. When you put taxes on countries that you do business with, those countries come to the table and say, okay, we're not going to put taxes on your goods if you don't put taxes on my goods. Now, how can we do business with one another? How can we do these trade deals with one another? Well, America is the largest economy in the world. We're the richest nation in the world. You want to do business with us, you're going to have to revalue your currencies. Trump, again, under this administration, unbeknownst to most people, made a huge trade deal with China that forced all other nations to do the same thing, to make trade deals with President Trump. And that's why he said all nations have agreed to meet with me. They've all called me. He didn't care that mainstream media was talking about him when he said, I'm going to meet with 90 countries in 90 days. When he first came back under the second administration, they said, good luck with that. That was their exact words. Good luck with that. And then Trump came back and said, yep, most of them have called me. And then the second or third week of him being in office under this administration, he said they've all agreed. So let's talk about more about how these nations have agreed to do business with President Trump, which led to world peace and America becoming very wealthy. Keep checking in, family. I see 180 people in the chat. Hi, AP. It's good to see you. Hi, TT Brew. Greetings to you. Dr. David Swope is in the house. Grand Rising. Michael George is here. Hello, happy Sabbath. Sanara Smith is in the house. Tanya's in the house. Thank you. Thank you. Sister Tanya said, I'm so happy that you made it safely into the state of Tennessee. I'm out near the Nashville area, which is, as you all know, Egypt. Tennessee, Kentucky, that is Egypt, according to the ancient maps. This is Egypt here. Good afternoon to you, Tanya. It's good to see Expia Ladocious. You know, I wanted to be live on Rumble, but I'm having issues. I am having issues with, I don't know why, with Rumble. Sometimes that happens where I have connectivity issues. Yeah, I'm still not able to, for some reason, get on there. But what I'll do is I'll download this podcast and I'll put it on Rumble immediately after this podcast. I'll download this video. This is being saved here on YouTube. And then I'll go live on my members only group at 5 o'clock for a breaking Iraqi news update. And then I'll put this video that I downloaded onto Rumble. So if you're interested in my Rumble channel, that's Dr. Kia Pruitt on Rumble. You can go to rumble.com, put in DR.KIA. DR space KIA space PRUITT. And you'll see my channel. Put in the search engine, you'll see my channel that'll be on Rumble. And if you're interested in joining the Silver Soul Tribe, which is our private group, then here is the link there. I put it in the chat because we're going to talk about Iraq news and how we know the Iraqi dinar is about to show on the Forex, because some wonderful things are happening there to let us know that Iraq is ready. And I've shown you all before that Iraq said that they are completely self-sustainable. They're not controlled by Iran anymore. They're taking care of their own needs, their own energy. They're making business deals. They have the largest transportation system in the whole Middle East, which connects Iraq to 66 countries all over the world. And that transit system that Iraq now has in place now makes goods going between Iraq and the whole world get there faster, quicker, better. So much is going on. The Iraqi government met with their entrepreneurs that were abroad, told them to come back home. Oh man, so much is going on in Iraq. So if you want to hear more about that, you can join the Silver Soul Tribe. It's storming here, family. So if we have connectivity issues, that's why. Peace and love. Peace and love. The video stopped. It's storming here. That could be why. That could be what's going on. Hello, Grand Sheik Amir. If you guys missed a beautiful podcast that I did with the Grand Sheik, he goes by Code One Film here, but Grand Sheik Amir, oh my God, we did a live podcast where he talked about how President Trump was made a sultan and how people are just conceding to him left and right. He talked about American history. He talked about living in a private. The man brought so much news and information that I know his phone was ringing off the hook because mine was. And they want you to do another podcast, Code One Film, also known as Grand Sheik Amir. I see Magda from South Africa. Welcome. Greetings to you too, Sister Abigail. Hi, Sister Cheryl. GE is on its way back to America. Yes, I love that. Grand Rising, Sister Cheryl. You can still see me, Awakened One? Great day to you too, Raw's Nanny. Hey, sister. Yes, we're in Egypt. This is my soul sister from Louisville, Kentucky. She's traveling in Tennessee now, and I'm in Tennessee, but we're in two different parts. I think you're in the Memphis area. Is that what you said, sis? I'm in the Nashville area. Great day to you too. Trump is also holding up the RV. Is he really? Let's talk about it. Hugs all the way around the world. Hi, Patricia. Pauline had to go out and come back in. Wow. Happy Sabbath, family. I see 238 people in the chat. Hi, Justice. Good to see you. Hi, C. Jones. Now 248. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hi, Sister Inez. Michelle is from San Antonio. My grandson will be there in a couple of days. Hi, Sen Solar. I don't know what's going on. Some people are saying they're having issues. Greetings, Sister Mary from Galveston. Pauline's in the house. Awakened One is saying hello to everybody and saying strange things are happening all over. I agree. Sister Deborah from Washington, D.C. Welcome. It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. I made it here safely. For those of you who don't know, I was traveling a couple of days ago. What day was that? Maybe 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago. And my flight was postponed like 6 times. Finally, they were saying it could be canceled. They don't know. They didn't know what was going on. There was a person that worked for the airline that was in a line with me. And she asked me my name and she said, we don't even know what's happening. I'm a flight attendant. She said, we don't even know what's happening. And she asked me, did I have any idea? Thank you for the Cash App blessing, Antonio. That was so very kind of you. But she said, my flight's been canceled and, everybody else's flights keep getting postponed. So she said, what I recommend is that you call American Airline and, since they keep postponing the flight, just tell them you'll come back. You go home tonight, sleep, and come back in the morning. So what I discovered while I was in the line, I did follow her advice, was that American Airline and other airlines were having problems all across the country. And there were cancellations and postponements in the whole world. So we knew something was up, but we didn't know why. Here in America, they were saying it was due to the weather, but abroad, they were saying it was due to the Iranian-Israel conflict. So America issued out a worldwide warning for everybody to stay home and not fly to certain countries or fly abroad. I had no idea. I did know that they've been saying for the longest time, until everything's eradicated, until the republic is restored, people should try not to fly. But I wanted to see my grandbabies. So here I am. and I did make it safely. So thank you so much. All right. Are you guys ready? 275 people in the chat. Yes, something's up, Sister Pauline. Something is up. Roz Nanny, thank you so much for the Cash App blessing or for the super chat. Roz Nanny Eva Diva says, great day, my true sister. We are in Egypt. I love you and I'll talk to you soon. I know it's you, Stacy. There's only one rawest nanny, right? You are the true, the realest, the rawest. There's only one, sis. I know it's you. Indiana's in the house. Hi, Ryan. Oh, Joe says, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Pam is here. Far East Tennessee. You're in Egypt too. Patricia, excuse me. Yes, you're catching me live, Marie. You were concerned about me. I made it safely. Not only was my plane continuously postponed into Charlotte, where I was supposed to make my connecting flight from Jacksonville into Charlotte and then on to Nashville, but they finally canceled it. And I was glad that I went home that night and decided to take that plane the next morning. But when I came back to the airport, they redirected me to Miami instead of flying into Charlotte. I connected in Miami, and that was postponed a couple of times. But I did make it back safely. Thank you for your concern, and thank you all for your prayers. Mama Lena says, welcome to Tennessee. Thank you. I love your state. I raised my children in a nearby state in Kentucky and stayed there for 20 years. So I love the Midwest, and I was born in Ohio and raised in Ohio. Greetings, Indigo. Greetings, Sister Kim. Hello, Enrico. Hi, Michelle. Sister Lori, happy Sabbath. It's good to see you too, Jerry. Awakened One says, I'm hearing traveling is a nightmare lately. Yes. So, yes, Grand Sheikh Amir Moadib is here, Code One Film. Thank you again for the super sticker. Still in our home, Kentucky. Explain later. Oh, you didn't make it to Tennessee. Okay, sis. Doomsday planes in the air. Kim says, hi, 17 Rings. Hi, True Love. Sister Theola's in the house, sis. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Or maybe you were here and I just hadn't seen you. Hi, George. The big, beautiful bill is Nasara. Let's talk about that too. I believe 2222 says hello. Buffalo, New York is in the house. Anthony says good afternoon to everybody. Remedia is in the house from Ohio. Hi, Lori. Good afternoon. It's good to see you too. Horatio's in the house. Blessings to you. Sister Lori, it's good to see you. Who's this? Didn't know you knew. Oh, I know you. You're the biggest, the rawest nanny ever, of course. Oh, I Love Pets is from Kentucky as well. Michigan's in the house. Hi, Sister Cheryl. Hi, Nor. Nora Elsa says, greetings, Dr. Kia. Solo Queen said they had severe thunderstorms in Charlotte. Several grounded stops. Okay. Kim says she's in Babylon, transmuting dark to light frequency, love, peace, and unity in Christ consciousness. Thank you. Maria's in the house. Blessings to you. Virginia's in the house. Jerron, good to see you. You guys are so wonderful. So I'll try not to be long. I'm just so happy to see everybody after being absent just for about 2 days. President Trump, listen, he is on a roll. Okay. This is just in from the White House. All of the latest accomplishments from Big Daddy, Big Papa's, what they calling them. First of all, President Trump just recently obliterated the 3 nuclear sites that were in Iran. There were nuclear sites where they were using uranium to create atomic bombs. That was a big threat to the world, according to mainstream media, President Trump, and others, because Iran, which had secretively controlled Iraq was not only saying death to Iraq, but they were also saying death to Americans. And Iran having those nuclear power plants meant that Iran had a lot of power, according to President Trump. So he obliterated the 3 sites where they were making those bombs, and that was their nuclear program. And after he successfully struck those 3 areas, then Iran and Israel agreed to peace, and that ended the so-called 12-day war. So you had a lot of people that were worried about President Trump hitting those sites, because they were like, look, if President Trump continues to go around the world hitting sites where people are creating nuclear bombs, that's going to set off a 3rd World War. And it did create tensions between Iran and Israel. People were saying, because that happened, you should leave America, because America is inciting World War III. But what I said is, a lot of things that we see on the news is not really as it is. So he may have struck those power plants, or it could just be smokescreen. Because let me tell you something. What's happening behind the scenes is they're about to do a reset. They're going to reset the world. They're going to reset the economic system, and they're going to reset politics and the way governments are operating. In essence, they're going to restart everything. So all of the people's republics and governments were overtaken by bloodline families, which are not even humanoids. It was these families, some of them called the Watchers, and some of them called the Anunnakis. And they have all different type of names for these entities that are not human, that are colonizing humanoids and humans all across the plane, the Earth plane. The Watchers, the colonizers, the Anunnaki. There's a book I'm reading about this. I'll show you the book, where there's a woman who is reporting from behind the ice wall. Excuse me, I'm getting the book. She's talking about how these different beings on the Earth plane are colonizing humans, and how this has been done for a very long time. And she called them extraterrestrial worlds. The book is called Terra Infinita, Extraterrestrial Worlds and Their Civilizations, the story told by the woman who was born in the lands behind the ice wall. One of our Silver Soul Tribe members told me to read this book because I was talking about extraterrestrials. She talks about how Mars, what else? The land of the Dracos, the lands of Venus, or what you call Venus, Neptune, Jupiter, Pegasus, Aldebaran, all these different places, Orion, that they tell you is up in the sky somewhere, the Pleiades, the land of the clones, they're actually on the land here on the Earth plane. And there's a big dome, of course, as you all know, that's over this Earth plane that's keeping humans from ascending and from understanding that they are enslaved. And so she talks about how they have colonized different faction of humans, and how they pit us against each other by creating different paradigms like racism, sexism, religion, and all type of things. But you all know this. We've talked about this before, and all the while they're harvesting our energy. So they create these hateful paradigms to divide us, and they institute certain things like putting in diseases in our water and our foods to cause us to become very sick and fearful. And they create certain programs where they're raping children, harvesting organs and blood, having us to live in an in an environment where we're paying out taxes and we have to work and work and work just to live, and how this causes us to emit a very strong psychic energy. Now, she didn't call it loosh, but I call it loosh, and I've heard that before. So this psychic energy that we emit is called loosh, and that is what these beings eat. They absorb this energy. So in this book, she's really talking about things that I've been saying for a long time, and it just feels good to have somebody that is saying the same thing, somebody I've never met. She talks about the Nephilim, the giants, and she also talks about how some of the giants and the humans got together to fight against these beings that's enslaving the planet. So what these beings did is they moved all across the earth plane and colonized people, pit us against each other, took our organs, instituted programs to cause us to fight against each other, and enslave us. According to this lady, she lived behind the ice wall. They create domes and ice walls to keep the people from uniting against these beings. So all across the earth plane, these beings have enslaved us, took over our minds, created religion, took over our constitutions and our agreements with one another, and they created their own constitutions, their own governments, while making agreements with presidents and people in different humanoid colonies. So according to my overstanding, though, there's a group of beings, or there are a group of beings or groups of beings who do not desire to see humans enslaved. And so they have worked tirelessly to help us to ascend, to break these chains, to remove the dome that's been keeping us captivated, and to issue out or release wealth so that we can finally know what it's like to thrive financially and economically. President Trump is not somebody she mentions in the book, but is somebody that we know of who has been selected by the Grand Army of the Republic to help destroy these groups of people and the power that they have over us. That is what this reset is. It's a whole complete renewing and redoing of these entities' power structures and control over we the people. So Trump was chosen to lead that charge, and he was chosen to be the commander-in-chief of the Grand Army of the Republic. So having said that, I'm gonna get back on. I just needed a second to gather my thoughts, because it's really upsetting, especially when you read the book from somebody who talks about how everything we've been taught is a lie. You think somebody's gone up into space, and they haven't. They've just gone to another part of the earth plane. That's what extraterrestrial means, the terrain. They're outside of the part of the earth that we know about. They didn't go into space. Some of you already know that, but I was really just kind of in limbo. I didn't know what to believe. Was the earth round? Is it flat? I didn't know, but this book is very eye-opening. It is a story told by the woman who comes from the lands behind the ice walls in the ancestral republic. She's the daughter of the navigator William Morris, who will provide information that was hidden from us for a long time about the worlds that are crossing the poles and the secrets of extraterrestrial civilizations. In this book, you'll discover the history before the last reset and the continuation of what happened to her father when he returned to our lands. This could change everything. The editor of this book is Claudio Nocelli. His YouTube channel is Nos Confundum. Second channel is Nos Confundierum. His Instagram is at Nos Confundum. Personal Instagram is Eden OSCONFUNDEN. I'll put this in a link for you. Very, very eye-opening. So President Trump was chosen to lead the charge of resetting the whole earth plane. And that's why he's been going around not only to the Middle East, but he just went to NATO, the NATO conference or the NATO Summit, to also continue to broker world peace. So what are some of the things that he's done? He's, of course, we talked about, took decisive action to obliterate those 3 nuclear sites in Iran, and that set back their nuclear program by several decades. After that successful strike, again, Iran and Israel came to a peace deal where they had a ceasefire agreement, and they're now having peace talks, which is good because we knew Israel was saved for last. So now Israel doesn't have any type of ought against Iran or anybody else that we know of. And eventually that whole state will have to be dismantled because the people that are controlling what's called Israel are not the biblical Jews, but they are Zionists, which really means that they are either they're from a bloodline family that are not human, bloodline families such as Rothschilds, or they're human hybrids, and they were given that region in the Palestinian region that they call Israel, the state of Israel. Who gave that to them? The British Crown and the Pope. They said that God's chosen people, the Jews from the Hebrew bloodline, need their own homeland. So the Rothschild faction of the Vatican and the Roman Empire, the Catholic Church, the Rothschild faction gave the Rothschild bloodline that area in Palestine, and they called it Israel. That was through the Balfour Agreement. Balfour, Balfour, something like that. Well, that's not a real bloodline. It's not a real state. They weren't treating the Palestinian people well, and they were saved for last. And that's what we see happening. So how exactly we're going to see that takedown of Israel, I'm not sure, but we do know that there's been peace that's brokered between Iran and Israel. So after that happened, when President Trump obliterated those 3 nuclear sites in Iran, then on last Tuesday, President Trump traveled to the Netherlands where he had a NATO summit. And while he was there, according to reports, he had a nice breakfast with the king and queen, and he secured an alliance commitment between all the NATO allies for all of them to spend 5% of their respective GDPs on defense. According to articles, this was a very good deal. While he was there, he had what they're calling a fun exchange between NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and where he referred to President Donald Trump as daddy. And people asked him, why are you referring to Donald Trump as daddy? And he said, well, when you think of Donald Trump being able to broker peace between Iran and Israel, that's a big deal, he said. And he said, not only that, but Trump has been securing peace deals and trade agreements all over the world. He just came from the Middle East where he brokered peace between all of the Middle Eastern nations, and he created trade deals between the Middle East and America. And now everybody's getting along. Trillions of dollars will be coming to the American people now that those trade deals between the Middle East and America have been brokered. And the Secretary General said the only group that was mad about the trade deals between Trump and the Middle East was Israel, because Israel said they felt left out. Israel said, wait a minute, everybody that comes to the Middle East to do any business, whether it's to meet with any of the nations or the nation leaders or speak about economics or geopolitics, they always come through Israel first, because we are the ones who establish things as they are in the Middle East. Netanyahu said right after Trump came back from his meeting in the Middle East, we feel left out. Trump's the only person that never went through us first. Something's going on. So for all the people that thought Trump was siding with Israel, that's not true. Trump didn't even go through them in order to broker deals with the Middle East like everybody else has done. In fact, there are articles out there, if you know how to find them, that says that Trump is distancing himself from Israel and those other nations that were allies with Israel. They've been distancing themselves. And this is why he said he referred to President Trump as daddy. I never heard a man call another man daddy, but hey, who am I to judge? Now he's trying to backpedal and say, well, I'm just trying to say that Trump is a good friend because he's doing things that nobody's ever done before. But I think President Trump might be saying this.
I just want to get your attention.
He's just trying to get everybody's attention and say, I am the HNIC. If you listen to the Grand Sheik the other day, he told you that bloodline is the Al-Kahuni bloodline. He's related to the autochthonous indigenous people here in America.
I really want to be all up in your head.
Trump is just all up in the head of all these people saying, Big Daddy is here. All this fighting's got to stop. If you didn't know, now you know. Before you got away with all this war, all this destruction. But it's not going to happen anymore. Why? Why? Not on my watch, because...
And you say, Daddy's home for me.
Daddy's home. He said, y'all been waiting on this loving all day. I'm here. I'm the HNIC. I'm that head ninja in charge. He met with the NATO alliances and he said, this is what we gonna do. Not can we, not will we, not it would be a good idea. But what we're all gonna do as allies is spend 5% of our respective GDPs on defense. And that is why NATO's Secretary General called him daddy, because he's not playing with them. He's getting the job done. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, if they all spend the same amount on defense, nobody's spending more than the other. Everybody's spending the same amount. We all doing business like, grown men here. And this is what Trump said on his Truth Social. The NATO Summit yesterday was great, the most unified and productive in history. A wonderful day with incredible and caring leaders. The agreed to 5% gives NATO real power, he said. After hosting a press conference, he returned home and he ended the week with the One Big Beautiful event. Remember that he's been talking about the big beautiful bill, and people kept saying, oh, it wasn't passed, it's not going to work, and I said, listen, I don't care who's fighting against him, he's going to be successful. Didn't he tell y'all who he was? And he has been successful. The One Big Beautiful bill will secure the borders, President Trump said, turbocharge our economy and bring back the American dream. And you see him securing the borders. He did put up a wall during his first administration. And now, even though people don't like it, he signed executive orders for mass deportation of illegal migrants and immigrants. Not the people here that are lawfully, but the ones that were illegal, the ones who were causing problems, the MS-13 gang members, the drug cartel that were bringing in fentanyl and other drugs across our borders, the men that were bringing in women and children and trafficking them. They all had to go home.
Thank you all for being here to support one of the most important pieces of legislation in the history of our country. The One Big Beautiful bill to secure our borders, turbocharge our economy, and bring back the American dream. This is the ultimate codification of our agenda to very simply make America great again. Today I signed this bill into law. Almost every major promise made in the 2024 campaign already will have become a promise kept.
Promises made, promises kept. That's what he promised to do, to secure our borders, turbocharge our economy. Remember, under his first administration, he said he was going to inject trillions of dollars into the global economy. And that's what he's doing by brokering trade agreements with China, the second largest economy in the world, by brokering trade agreements between all the Middle Eastern nations and agreements between us and Middle Eastern nations, by encouraging Africa and helping Africa to all unite. Now Africa is saying they're going to have one Africa. All the nations are coming together under one umbrella, and they're going to have their own currency. President Trump is on a roll. So we talked about how he got rid of those nuclear sites in Iran, which caused a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Also, before he even did that, he put sanctions on Iran and told Iran to stop controlling Iraq. Well, Iran then stopped, of course, bringing in power into Iraq, and they stopped doing business with Iraq because Trump put sanctions on them, and that liberated Iraq to then start brokering deals, trade deals, and energy deals with other nations, and to drill themselves. And now they're saying they're self-sustainable. So he put sanctions on Iran, then he bombed those nuclear power plants. Now you have Iran and Israel having peace talks. They have a ceasefire. Then he had a meeting with NATO, met with the king and the queen, had a nice breakfast, brokered a deal for all NATO alliances and all those countries to spend 5% of their respective GDPs on defense. Then after that, he had a press conference where he said the big, beautiful bill is going to continue to secure our borders and bring in trillions of dollars for the American people. Another part of that bill is to get rid of the IRS and stop taxing we, the American people. He did so much. And then he had a press conference on the Supreme Court win. What was that Supreme Court win? It was a huge win. I'll bring that up right away. People kept asking me if I heard about the Supreme Court win because it just happened the other day while I was traveling. The Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law, and striking down the excessive use of national injunctions. No more national injunctions. Let me let you hear what he has to say about that. And then I'll bring up an article to go into more detail. Oh, that's not a video. So let me just go ahead and get to the article. The Supreme Court ends abuse of injunctions, no more judicial supremacy. Keep checking in, family. So let's see what this article says. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 on Friday in a controversial birthright citizenship case that the lower courts can no longer issue nationwide injunctions, and that doing so is an abuse of judicial power, because whenever President Trump would issue out an executive order, the Supreme Court would use and exert their power to try to prevent him. The decision in the Trump versus CASA indicated the Department of Justice strategy of arguing against the idea of nationwide injunctions rather than addressing the underlying substantive issue in the case, namely the dispute over whether the 14th Amendment to the Constitution guarantees citizenship upon birth. Conservatives argued that birthright citizenship is abused by illegal migrants to make their children into United States citizens. So people who were here illegally were made their children United States citizens, and then later sponsored the legal immigration of the rest of their families. They also argued that no other nation has birthright citizenship and that the 14th Amendment did not intend to create it. So the 14th Amendment was not for the so-called Native Americans that are here, and it was not for illegal immigrants or illegal migrants. Allegedly, the 14th Amendment were for the people classified as Black, so-called African Americans and or slaves. But we didn't come from slave ships anyway. We didn't come from Africa. We are the autogenous indigenous people here in America. And that's why there's this big discussion as to whether or not so-called Black people should be fighting with or being allies with illegal immigrants, because some of the so-called illegal migrants, illegal immigrants are saying, look, Black folk, y'all need to fight with us and help to keep us here. Fight against President Trump, because y'all gonna be next, because y'all not citizens. Y'all not rightfully here either, is what they're saying. But so-called Black folks is like, that's not my fight. I don't have anything to do with that. This is not related to us. And it really could be mainstream media that's causing this clash between so-called illegal migrants or illegal immigrants and the African-American community. But, you know, Black folks is like, people classified as Black is like, this is not my fight. This is between y'all and President Donald Trump and the powers that be. But we're not going to be deported. And I'll tell you why. Because we're not immigrants or migrants, and we're not unlawfully here. We sprung from the soil. We're called autogenous. And when you look at what Walter Plecker did and people that were above over the Census Bureau and the United States government, what they did, they reclassified the autogenous people here. They reclassified them from calling them indigenous to then calling them colored, and then calling them Negro, and then calling them Black, then calling them Negro again, then calling them African American. But they are the autogenous indigenous peoples here. And who are the Native Americans? They are, is it Siberians? They come from crossing, they came from Asia. They crossed the Bering Strait here. And they came here and settled here. But before them were the so-called African Americans. They are the Native Americans. That's why Trump keeps saying they don't look Indian to me, because they're not. They're not Indian. They're not the autogenous indigenous people here. But anyway, the Supreme Court of the United States just recently decided in that case, Trump versus Casa, and they vindicated the Department of Justice strategy of arguing against the idea of nationwide injunctions, rather than addressing the underlying substantive issue in the case, which in this case was over whether or not the 14th Amendment to the Constitution guaranteed citizenship upon birth. Just because you were born here on this soil does not automatically allow you to lay claims to be considered a citizen or an American. And if we really want to get technical, a lot of people are committing identity theft right here in America. According to the 1828 Webster's definition of American, which says that they are the copper colored races that were discovered here by Christopher Columbus, but now applied to Europeans. So we're all now considered Americans, but you got a lot of people here that's laying claim to the land, the mines, the resources, the nationality, and they're not. Given a number of contrary rulings in lower courts which slapped nationwide injunctions on President Donald Trump's executive orders on the subject, the Department of Justice kept the focus on its challenge to the narrow issue of nationwide injunctions. Democrats, and to a lesser extent, Republicans, have sued in friendly jurisdictions in recent years as a way of stopping administration policies that they don't have legislative votes to overturn. So you had Democrats and to some extent Republicans that will sue in efforts to try to stop executive orders being issued out. in an originalist opinion written by Justice Amy Barrett, the court's conservative majority found the universal injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has given to federal courts. So President Trump considers this a victory. This is that the Supreme Court overturned this issue of birthright citizenship. Just because you were born here doesn't mean you automatically become a citizen, and then therefore you can go and send for the rest of your family. President Trump is doing away with that. He won his case in court. Another win for President Donald Trump. Then after that, he hosted a foreign ministers conference between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. That was huge. And he brokered peace between Rwanda and the Congo. And I'm going to tell you what they said. The Democratic Republic of Congo's foreign minister, Wagner, said this to President Donald Trump: "Thank you and congratulations for this remarkable milestone of brokering peace between the Congo and who else did I say? I'm sorry. Oh, and Rwanda. Thank you and congratulations indeed for this remarkable milestone, which is putting an end to 30 years of conflict and suffering." And I'll show you. But President Trump is doing amazing things. That was a 30-year war between the two nations that's now ended because of President Donald Trump.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for having us here. I think I can summarize my contribution in 3 main points. First of all, thank you and congratulations indeed for this remarkable milestone, which is putting an end to 30 years of conflict and of suffering, and which is redefining the perspectives that millions of Congolese and of citizens of the greater Great Lakes region will have. The second point is stay committed, stay on board. We need the United States to make sure that this agreement holds and that you hold us accountable. And the third point is—
I love the way she says stay committed, because she's not the only one. Other nations, leaders that with whom he's meeting are saying the same thing. Stay committed, because only you can broker peace between different world leaders.
If you stay on board, I think there are so many perspectives that we can transform our partnerships through, and that can usher in an era of prosperity, of growth, and of shared bilateral relationships that go—
You're going to usher in prosperity and growth, she said,
well beyond the challenges that we've shared together, and that can at least, or finally, focus on the potential and of the wealth that we can share. So again,
it will focus on the potential of the wealth that we can share between the Congo and America, because the Congo, in terms of natural resources, is extremely wealthy. That's why Newt Gingrich did his dissertation on why it's a good idea to colonize the Congo, because of all those natural resources that are there.
And our heartfelt gratitude to you on my behalf, but more importantly, on behalf of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you so much.
So I'll leave that in the description section so you can listen to that for yourself. So that was the leader of the Congo. And now let's listen to the leader of the Republic of Rwanda, express their gratitude. Feel free to keep sharing your thoughts and your comments, because I will come to them. The foreign minister, Oliver, I don't know how to say his last name, tells the President of the United States of America, there has been many mediations and facilitations in the past, but none of them exceeded. And we believe it's because of your leadership, President Donald Trump, and your steadfast commitment to this process that Rwanda and now the Democratic Republic of the Congo signed a historic peace agreement. And there have been movies made about that particular conflict between those two nations, because it was such a profound conflict. But here is the speech that you can hear
Thank you
yourself.
very much, Mr. President. This is indeed a historical day because it's the signing of a peace agreement between Congo and Rwanda to end a conflict that has been going on for 30 years. And there has been many mediation, facilitation in the past, but none of them succeeded. And we believe that it's because of your leadership and your steadfast commitment to this process, with also a new approach of economic integration, regional economic integration, which is important to allow Rwanda and DRC working together, because this is a very rich region with cross-border trade, with the minerals, with natural wealth. So with the US standing side by side with Rwanda and DRC, we believe that we will achieve a long-time peace. And we also believe that, as my colleague from DRC stated, it's important for the United States to stay committed, because today we signed, but now we need to implement what we have signed in order to open this new era you were talking about of prosperity, so that we can reap the economic dividend of peace. So for this economic integration framework to be implemented, it's important for the US to accompany.
Signing this is important in terms of this new era of prosperity and peace.
The parties to implement what we have signed, because in the past we have signed so many agreements that were not implemented. And we are really, we believe that with your leadership, with the involvement of the United States administration, we will reach that goal. So thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
A very historic meeting and a very big accomplishment, because he said they've signed agreements between Rwanda and the Republic of Congo many times, but they never kept their agreements. Somebody, went against their word. And it was probably whoever was controlling those nations behind the scenes that would actually cause a disruption between those agreements. So that will be in the description section for you as well, so you all can listen to that. Hi, Sunday, I see you. You says, hello, Dr. Pruitt. Here in Uganda, I emailed you waiting for your response, ma'am. I did respond. I responded. Can you go back and check your email and see that you have a response? And if you don't, let me know, because, something could have happened, but I responded. And I told you I would love for you to come and speak on a platform about what's going on in Uganda. As a matter of fact, if you have time today, you can come back another time. But if you have time today, you can come and talk to us about what's going on in Uganda. Here, I'm gonna put that I'm gonna put that link right here for you in case you want to come on and talk about what's going on in Uganda, what's going on between Uganda and other African nations. Sunday, it's good to see you here. So you're welcome. Somebody said, thank you for putting this together. You're welcome. So this was a huge, huge deal for President Trump to broker peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, because both nations are very rich, but especially the Congo. Some reports state that the Congo is the wealthiest resource-rich nation in the world, on the planet. When you think about the rare earth minerals that they have, the cobalt and some of the other precious metals that they have there, that they could use to help create a prosperous globe. They can help the entire globe become wealthy. So what you're going to see is a sharing of resources, a sharing of minerals, a sharing of rare earth minerals, sharing of precious metals, and agreements, trade deals, business agreements between different nations. So what President Trump is doing is he's getting rid of the public sector, and he's enriching the private sector. He's demolishing the public sector, which is the government, those bloodline families that controlled not only America, but the world. He and the Global Alliance, they're dismantling that whole conglomerate of bloodline families that controlled the earth plane. And now releasing the private sector, or empowering the private sector. And the private sector is just individuals, a group of individuals that agree to do business together. It's you and me. We're now sovereign. We're no longer slaves. We're no longer citizens. Citizens are slaves. They sit in sin, is what Chief Mack says. So you're either a citizen or you're sovereign. You're either a slave or you're free. President Trump is demolishing the government. He and the global alliance, demolishing the governments and those bloodline families, dismantling them, whether you call them the cabal, the deep state, the Illuminati, what else do they call them? The New World Order Alliance, bloodline families, they're all being dismantled. And that's interesting to know that the public sector is being dismantled while the private sector is being empowered, because we're living at a time right now where people can create their own banks so that they can be empowered economically and financially. How can you create your own bank? By having silver and gold, because we're all moving back to gold being the standard. And we know that's to be the case because we're putting all the puzzle pieces together. The most recent thing that happened is that President Trump said that he's getting rid of Jerome Powell, who is the chair of the Federal Reserve. Remember the other day he said Jerome Powell is a numbskull. He's a stupid person. He and the Federal Reserve Board have been complicit in making America poor. Well, you knew when you heard him say that, he's about to replace this nut. And I told you in my report that I did last week that he was considering 5 people, one of whom is Dr. Judy Shelton, who is a well-known economist, Austrian economist, believe in the global markets, believe in trade deals between nations. She believes and supports the gold standard. He is who she nominated in the beginning of his first term. She has a PhD in economics, and she has in business, economics being her expertise. So whether it's Dr. Judy Shelton or not, this person that he chooses will be over the Federal Reserve. So some people have asked me, why are you saying that he will be over this person, he or she will be the chair of the Federal Reserve when the Federal Reserve is nefarious? I'll tell you why. Because it's indeed true that the Federal Reserve is bankrupt and they are being dismantled. But it's also true that the duties of the Federal Reserve, along with the duties of the IRS, are all being put under the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department. Because according to our republic and the Constitution for our republic, the only entity that can deal with money or have anything to do with money is the United States Treasury Department. So making Dr. Judy Shelton or whoever will replace Jerome Powell as the Fed chair will actually be the chair or the person that's over the entire Treasury Department, or at least that part of the Treasury Department that has some of the duties of the Federal Reserve. Because again, the duties of the IRS and the Federal Reserve are all put under the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department. So President Trump is dismantling the old monetary system. He said that the board of the Federal Reserve was complicit in making Americans poor and in destroying the American economy. How were they complicit? By enslaving people in America and people all over the world. Issuing out debt, issuing out loans when they weren't loaning us anything. We're the creditors, they're the debtors, but they made us believe that they were the creditors. And then putting interest rates on top of that. And by the way, forcing people to pay interest or usury is actually against our republic. It's against the principles of our republic, and it's against the Bible. But they've done it anyway. They were complicit in enslaving us, but Trump is getting rid of that. And that's why he's saying he's going to replace Jerome Powell, who he's calling a stupid person and a numbskull. At the same time, you have the Supreme Court of the United States overturn the Chevron doctrine, limiting the powers of the federal government. That's why DOGE was created, Department of Government Efficiency, to downsize the government, to get rid of the public sector. What happened after Trump downsized the government and put Elon Musk over that? You had people take to the streets and protest because Trump was getting rid of the public and bringing in the private, because they don't want to get rid of their entitlement benefits. They want to continue to suck on the ninny jug or the breast of the government. They want to continue to get Section 8. They want to continue to get food stamps. They want to continue to get free stuff, not understanding and overstanding that when you get benefits from the government can control you by giving you money and entitlement benefits. You don't need that when the whole world is wealthy. And this is why you see these peace agreements between these nations. They're like, we have resources in the Congo. We have resources in Rwanda. We have resources as the BRICS Alliance. We have resources in the Shanghai Corporation. We don't need the Federal Reserve or any of their bloodline families to create their system of enslavement. So President Trump is brokering these trade deals between all nations across the globe. In response, what you see is these nations gifting America jets, rare earth minerals, precious metals, and all sorts of resources. Those things that these countries are gifting us will be comprised or put into the sovereign wealth fund that President Trump created by executive order when he first came back during his second term. The sovereign wealth fund is a fund that's comprised of rare earth minerals, precious metals, real estate, stocks, bonds, digital assets, and foreign currencies. And those funds will go right back to we the people. They'll be used for our universal basic income, or everybody all in America and all across the globe, because other nations have a sovereign wealth fund as well. Everybody's going to have money and wealth that's going to be given to them in their accounts. So that money is for investments into the American people and into other projects, investments, and infrastructure to build up our infrastructure here in America. And other sovereign wealth funds in different countries will do the same, be used for investments and infrastructure. So let's just recap. President Trump obliterated the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, which set back their nuclear program by decades. And after doing that, Iran and Israel issued out a ceasefire, and now they have a peace deal. Then on Tuesday, President Trump traveled to the Netherlands, where he met with the NATO alliance at the NATO Summit. He attended a breakfast between the king, and the queen, and they said he had a good time. And then he secured an alliance agreement between all NATO nations to spend 5% of the respective GDP on defense. During that time where he was meeting with the NATO alliances, he and Secretary General Mark Rutte had a nice friendly exchange with a gentleman called President Trump Daddy. And you'll hear about that on some news outlets because they could not believe that another man called a man daddy. But President Trump said, y'all gonna call me something because I'm doing things that never happened before. I'm brokering trade agreements and all kinds of deals that nobody's ever been able to secure. Trump said, Daddy's home, and I'm doing the darn thing as the HNIC. What else has happened? After hosting that press conference, after hosting that or being a part of the NATO alliance at the summit, he then hosted a press conference when he came back home, and he talked about the big, beautiful bill and how it passed. He did a press conference on a Supreme Court win that he just had. And then he hosted a foreign ministers meeting between the Democratic Republic of Congo's president and the Republic of Rwanda. We're in the Oval Office, where they both said that this is unprecedented. This has never happened. You have set the precedent for us finally coming to a peace deal that we believe is going to stick. And they told him, stick to it. Please stay consistent, because you're the only one that can make this happen. Then you saw Vice President Vance meet or do press conferences with Meet the Press, Breitbart, and ABC News, as well as Fox News, to stand in support of President Trump and to talk about all of the accomplishments of President Trump has done so far in his second term. Also, you saw the S&P and the NASDAQ hit all type of historic highs yesterday. And I'll show you what happened there here. This one was published on Twitter. A lot's been going on Twitter. A lot of people that study geopolitics and economics and follow the news, they've now stopped listening to mainstream media and they've decided to go to Twitter, and this is why.
It was a record day on Wall Street. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hitting new intraday highs and now closing at new record highs. It was
all because of what President Trump is doing. All the peace deals that he's securing, all the trade deals that he secured in the Middle East and with China are now setting the precedent for global peace and a revaluation of currencies. So he's doing it, family. What else is happening? Let me see if I can find anything else. Oh, now they're talking about the United States and China reaching a trade deal on rare earth minerals and rare earth exports. But I reported on that like 2 or 3 weeks ago in the Silver Soul Tribe group. I said, nobody's talking about this. At least they're not making a big deal about it. But I'm going to tell you that President Trump secured a huge trade deal. Now, this that I'm going to pull up for you only says that he secured a deal, but it doesn't go into details. They said that nobody's talking about the details, but actually I did in the Silver Soul Tribe group. And what I said basically or essentially was when you have trade deals between the 2 largest economies in the world, that forces everybody else to get on board. And that will force a global currency reset and a revaluation of currencies worldwide. Not only those trade deals between America and China, but the fact that the BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, already in 2022 had 85% of the global population on board with refusing to trade with the United States dollar and using their own local currencies backed by precious metals. So you had the BRICS bloc and you had the Shanghai Cooperation organizations, which are the Asian nations, also saying they're not going to use the United States dollar for trade, but they're going to use their own local currencies. And then you had the African nations said, we're going to join BRICS and we're going to kick out the colonizers in our nation. We're going to kick out their military. We're going to form our own nation, our own alliance. We're going to use our own local currencies backed by the precious metals in our countries. So the whole world essentially has stopped trading with the United States dollar. They're rejecting the global powers that be. And I know a lot of people like to say it's the white man, but you got to know who the white man is. It's not about race. It's not about skin complexion. It is a class structure. White supremacy is an ideology. White and black are legal statuses. So when you talk about white supremacy, you talk about having white status, they make you think on the surface it's about race, it's about skin complexion, but really who really had white status were these beings that came to the planet and colonized the humans on the planet. That's being dismantled. That's being dismantled. This is just a little bit about the story, but we've been reporting on this for a long time now. You already know this, that there were extraterrestrial beings that made agreements with presidents, not only in America, but all across the globe, to give them power and wealth in exchange for allowing them, these beings, to use us to harvest our organs, to harvest our blood, and to continue to further suppress us. But it's over now. We're in the final stages. You can expect to see a reset of the whole world, a reset of how we do things geopolitically, a reset of of how we do things financially and economically, and a redistribution of wealth. That's what's coming. So I hope you enjoyed all the things we talked about, all the things that President Trump is doing. He is brokering world peace, family, and he's bringing in lots of wealth to make America wealthy again. Iran's nukes obliterated. Israel, Iran now has a ceasefire. NATO agreed to 5% of the GDP being used on defense. The S&P and the NASDAQ hit all-time highs. Now that all of this is this world peace and all this stuff happening is leading to lower gas prices. The Supreme Court of the United States ends nationwide injunctions, where now President Trump's executive order stands. Americans support the one big beautiful bill and how that's going to secure the border and bring in wealth. All this is happening to make America great again and to make Earth great again. MAGA and MEGA. MEGA is make Earth great again. And then finally, the United States and China reached a trade deal on rare earth exports. So let me show you that one right quick, that article. And if you're interested in hearing my take on that, you can join the Silver Soul Tribe to hear what I say about how that trade agreement actually will force a currency revaluation. So essentially through Project Sandman, all 209 nations agreed to stop trading with the United States dollar when triggered. And that trigger was Vladimir Putin going to Ukraine to uncover all the nefarious activities with the money laundering, the drug laundering, the sex trafficking, all that. Putin went there to Ukraine, uncovered what was going on in the bio labs. And that led to Biden putting sanctions on Vladimir Putin for exposing all that, because Biden and his family, as well as other presidents, were involved in the nefarious activities going on in the Ukraine. So when Biden put sanctions on Vladimir Putin, he told all nations to not do business with Vladimir Putin from Russia. And so Vladimir Putin said, it's okay, I'm going to continue exposing what's going on in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin also comes from a very important bloodline. And he said, not only am I going to expose this, but I'm going to circumvent you putting sanctions on me. I don't care about you telling people not to do business with me. I'm going to use my own currency, which is the Russian ruble. And that's why in 2022, during that war between him and Ukraine, the Russian ruble became the strongest performing currency on the planet. And then he, being the trigger, then took to the podium, the proverbial podium, spoke to the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia. Remember, he's from Russia, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and said, y'all do the same. Stop trading with the American dollar, the United States dollar, excuse me. Use your own local currencies. You can use mine to begin with, he said. Then he went on further and he told or encouraged Saudi Arabia to join the BRICS bloc. And the BRICS bloc in 2022 became known as SAL-BRICS. That was very important because what made the United States dollar the world reserve currency was our agreement, or the United States Incorporated's agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for their oil. And then they would force all nations to get oil from Saudi Arabia using the United States dollar. If they used their own currency, it had to be pegged to the United States dollar. That's what made the United States dollar, the world reserve currency. That's what made the United States Incorporated have financial and economic hegemony. They made them the financial and economic powerhouse. But when Biden put sanctions on Vladimir Putin and Putin said, we're not going to trade with the dollar anymore, we're going to use our own Russian ruble. And then he went to the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and said, y'all use your own currency. Then he told Saudi Arabia to join BRICS. That was the end of the Saudi United States America agreement. And then the following 2 years after that, in 2024, the agreement between the United States Incorporated and Saudi Arabia was officially over, but it really ended once Saudi Arabia joined BRICS. But officially it was over because that agreement was not renewed in 2024. Thanks to Vladimir Putin. And in 2022, 85% of the world population had joined BRICS against the knowledge of most people, unbeknownst to most people. Most people had no idea that 85% of the world, the global population, had stopped trading with the United States dollar. So it was Russia first, then it was BRICS, then it was Saudi Arabia that joined BRICS. They became known as SAL-BRICS, and other nations started joining one by one, and it became known as BRICS Plus. So while the BRICS nations started growing, then you had the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, which is a group of Asian countries that coalesced against the United States Incorporated and stopped trading with the United States dollar and using their own currencies. At the same time, they were brokering world peace between the nations. Finally, on June 26, 2 days ago, Trump announced a trade deal signed with China. I announced that. I can show you. I announced that weeks ago. President Trump said on Thursday that the United States signed a trade deal with China and that a deal with India may also be in the works. Whenever they say maybe, that means that it is. A trade deal with India is in the works, and according to Dr. Kia Pruitt, probably already has occurred. By the time they tell you something has happened or is going to happen, it has happened years ago. Trump said, and his administration officials have said that they've been working overtime making deals with other countries. And then he added, we just signed a China deal yesterday, right? We signed with China. However, he did not specify the details of the deal. I can tell you, Dr. Kia Pruitt, that the trade deal with China means that whatever you decide whatever tariffs you're going to put on goods, American goods coming into your country, that's what we're going to put on your goods coming into our country, China. So if you don't want any tariffs or low tariffs or taxes on your goods coming into America, you better do the same on our goods going into your country. And I can assure you that these two largest economies coming to a trade agreement forced all other nations to agree and get on board. And that will force a global currency reset and a revaluation of currencies, or the RV as most people are calling it. Trump says we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened. And the relationship with every country has been very good, Trump added. So it's done, family. You see, at the end of every empire, they rack up the debt, they print as much money as they can, they amass themselves wealth, and then they destroy the system and they go back to the gold standard. It's called the crack up boom. You spin up the debt, you print out as much money as you can, you use as much credit as you can, crash the system because it's not effective, and then you go back to the gold standard. We're at the end of the Roman Empire. The United States Incorporated is just an extended expansion of the Roman Empire. We're at the end. It's over. Thank you, Ivana. Ivana says Hotel Rwanda is a movie by Keith Harmon Snow, one of the greatest people on earth, about the conflict going on in Rwanda. 23 Archer says the illegals who are still illegal should have to leave with their anchor babies, regardless of age. Yeah, I hear you. Thomas says, though, anchor baby is a term regarded by some as pejorative, referring to a child born to a non-citizen parent in a country that has birthright citizen. So people would come to America, have a baby here, and then that baby, by virtue of being born here, would be classified as a citizen. And that anchor baby would then give the parents status here in America. But Thomas is saying, yes, it is regarded as a pejorative term. And this refers to a child born to non-citizen parents in a country that has birthright citizenship. You know, I read an article, but President Trump says no other country has birthright citizenship, and that's why he did away with it here in America. Thomas says the people of Iran, Syria, and other countries are celebrating that they want their freedoms from the dictators that have opened them for so many years. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you sharing that. Hi, Sister Deborah. It's good to see you. Ooh. Laurie says, I bet they'll use robotics mining the rare earth minerals. Laurie also says, I felt sovereign in my soul all of my life, and that's why I never got along and resisted participating being ruled by corporations. I love that. Greetings. So family, James is saying you can't make this up. That's about it. I just wanted to let you see all of the wonderful things that President Trump has done to broker world peace and to make sure that America's wealthy again. And as the presidents in Congo and Rwanda said, now the world can be wealthy because brokering agreements between rivaling nations just ensures that we all share the resources that we have with one another. This is the end of colonization of the human population, of Americans and people all across the globe. So we must never allow enslavement to happen again. We must always stick together. We must always make sure that we lead and live in love, and that we support each other and help each other no matter what. Because as long as we're united, nobody can enslave any of us that are part of this so-called human tribe, or whatever you want to call us. Now, people say you shouldn't use the word human because human mean monster, but who does it mean monster according to? It's according to the beings that enslaved humanity. For some reason, they consider us vile. They consider us foul. They don't like the human population for whatever reason. However, you do have some extraterrestrials that are here to help fight with the humans to liberate us. It's crazy. However, this is an exciting time to be alive. This is June the 28th, 2025. Just in a few days, we will have Independence Day. We will have the 4th of July. And that is going to be a huge celebration of not just Americans being independent and free and sovereign, but the whole earth plane. All of humanity will celebrate being independent or free from enslavement to these beings that colonize the planet. Let me know what you think about that, family. It's an exciting time to be alive. We are experiencing a global currency reset right now and a reset of the whole system. No more enslavement, but now our prosperity, our peace, and our sovereignty and wealth are being restored. So now we're going to finish up with some more comments. If you all have any comments before I have to go to the Silver Soul Tribe, where we'll have some breaking Iraq news. And I'm just going to read a few things that's coming up out of Iraq to let people know what's happening. But essentially, Iraq is self-sustainable. Iraq has the largest transit system now that was actually incorporated, implemented as of April the 1st of this year, connecting Iraq to 66 countries in the world. And Iraq's doing business now. They're open for business. They've called back their entrepreneurs, and a lot of other things are happening that I'm going to talk about briefly today. You're very welcome. Yes, thank you so much, gods. Trina said, yes, thank you to the gods. Thank you to all those that are here to help liberate the planet. Sister Laurie says, birthright citizenship was originally meant for children of slaves at the time around 1860 when they passed the amendments. Otherwise, it was for children of foreign citizens here under government legalese. Arkansas says that Independence Day is July 2nd. Well, if that be the case, we only have maybe 4 more days? Oh my gosh. So President Trump did say that we will have a celebration from Memorial Day of 2025 all the way up through July 4th, 2026. And then some people are saying that we just might have that huge celebration on this July. But we'll see. We know something is in the works, family. A lot has been accomplished. I can't even think of what else needs to happen. Anything else need to happen in order for the greatest wealth transfer in history to occur? They say saving Israel for last. We know Israel is about to be completely dismantled because it's not a real state. And we know that there's no war between Israel and Iran anymore. There's a ceasefire. We know that all nations have decided to stop trading with the United States dollar. We know that the Supreme Court of the United States said that now state-sponsored banks here in America can operate independently from the Federal Reserve central banking system, have their own charter, their own rules, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. And we know that at least 45 states, and some articles say 46 states here in America, have reclaimed silver and gold as money. How did they do that? By repealing or removing the state sales tax from precious metals. When you remove sales tax from precious metals, you are acknowledging them as money, because according to our Constitution for our republic, you cannot tax money. That's unlawful. Then you have all these trade deals being brokered all across the globe, which means that they're going to have to revalue their currencies. It's a wrap, family. We're living in a very, very exciting time. And President Trump is the one who was inspired to or charged to make sure that happens. And that's why they're calling him Daddy, because he was the one that was chosen to lead this charge. So that's it, family. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for your attention, your time. I thank you for all the prayers. I made it safely here in Tennessee to visit my grandbabies. I thank you for the monetary blessings that you've given me. I thank you for your support. I thank you for your love and your encouragement for me to keep pressing until this is all over. So many times I kept saying I want to stop because my channel has had issues. This is about the 8th channel. I've lost count, 7th or 8th channel on YouTube. And we've had issues all across social media, but we're still here reporting the news. We sometimes report the news before mainstream media supports or reports on the news, because of all of the good things that the Most High or the Supreme Being or the creative consciousness, all the things that the creative consciousness or the one pours into us to let us know what's really going on. That doesn't make me any more special than anybody else. That just means that God is a frequency. And if you want to know what God is, or you want to hear from God, you just got to plug into that frequency, that high vibrational frequency. Everything is from energy. We all resonate on a certain frequency when we're connected to source. So God is just a frequency. Well, I should say the one is a frequency. The one is a high vibration. It's love, it's joy, it's peace, it's light. It's all that in one. Everything came from source. Everything has source living within it. So you have source, the ultimate creator or energy. And then you have all these so-called gods, which are just creative or creator beings that seed humanity, seed different beings across the planet. They have different names. They all considered gods, but that's no different from you. The scripture, if you read the scripture in the Old Testament and the New Testament says ye are gods. You are gods too. So there's source and there are gods all across the earth plane. When you're plugged in the source, when you plug into that frequency that created everything, that creative energy, that high vibrational frequency, you have love, you have joy, you have peace. And you're often informed about what's going on behind the scenes. That's it. Just plug in. And oftentimes, in order to plug in to the one or to source, you might have to shut down all the noise, because these negative beings, these other entities that are here, put in low vibrational frequencies in the music, in the television, in the movies, in the foods, in the water, in the medicines. So oftentimes you have to reject those things and plug into source. The scripture says, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of a good report, think on those things. Plug into what's positive. Plug into what's healthy. Eat healthy foods. Eat a lot of living raw fruits and vegetables. Of course, you can cook your foods, but also incorporate living raw fruits and vegetables, because your cells feed on them. Take some time out to fast, to not eat anything. Of course, consult with whomever, your practitioner, medical doctor, or your herbalist, whomever. But when you fast and not put in so much junk in your body, and you take a break from food, your cells repair themselves. So spend some time fasting, spend some time eating lots of raw fruits and vegetables, drink clean, pure water, push back from the soda, the pop, the processed foods, sit in the sun, receive benefits and information from the sun. Let your hair out so that your hair can receive the information from the ancestors and from the sun. Hug some trees, walk on the earth barefoot. And that's how you plug in the source. Listen to music with high vibrational frequencies. That's how you plug in the source. All of these are ways that you plug in the source and you begin to have information downloaded into you about the good things that are happening on the planet. And I hope that when I get here and I report on the news, I raise your frequencies and I bring you hope and encouragement. So that's it for now, family. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Now go out, family, and make this a great day. I love you so much. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video if you are so inclined. And if you will, or you desire to hear just a little bit about what's going on in Iraq, then you can join the Silver Soul Tribe here on this link. Hit the link, follow the prompts, and you'll be in. And this is for people who are interested in investments only. Or you can go to this channel, to my major channel, or any video on this channel, and beside the subscribe button, you'll see a join button. Hit on that button and you'll be a part of the Silver Soul Tribe, where we'll discuss all type of investments. That's it, family. I'll see you on the other side. I love you. Peace. Bye-bye.